In 43 years on this bench, I have seen almost everything. But every once in a while, a case walks through my courtroom door so bold, so absolutely shameless, that I have to remind myself I am a judge and not a grandfather. Because the grandfather in me wanted to say a whole lot more than the law allowed. And the case I am about to tell you started with a boy who thought his last name was a shield. A boy who had never once in his 19 years been told the word no. A boy who looked me dead in the eyes, right there in my courtroom, and said 4 words I will never forget as long as I live. Before I go any further, if you believe money should never buy a person out of the consequences of their own cruelty, hit that subscribe button right now and come with me, because what I am about to share will make your blood boil and your heart sing at the very same time. Let us go. The case came across my desk on a Wednesday morning. Case number MC 2024-4471, filed in Providence Municipal Court. The incident happened Tuesday night, October 8, 2024, at 11:23 p.m., cold and dark, the kind of night when decent people are already home. Officer Sandra DeLuca, badge number 3847 out of the Providence Police Department, was the responding officer. When I read her report, I had to slow down and read it twice, not because it was complicated, because it was sad. Plain, honest, human sadness on paper. The victim was Marcus Webb, 58 years old. He lived on Cranston Street in Providence with his 14-year-old granddaughter, Amara. Marcus had served in the United States Army for 22 years. He was not drafted. He chose to serve. Signed up at age 19, the same age as the boy who would one day end up standing before me. He did 2 tours overseas, came home, and spent the next 15 years as a Providence crossing guard on Elmwood Avenue and Hartford Street. Every morning, rain or snow or ice, Marcus was on that corner in his orange vest with his stop sign, making sure every child got across safely. The kids in that neighborhood called him Mr. Marcus. Parents knew him by first name. When the school asked him to take on an extra crossing post because they were short-staffed, Marcus said yes without hesitating. After his crossing guard shift ended at 4:30 every afternoon, Marcus drove across town to a second job. He worked the evening shift in the cafeteria at St. Joseph's Hospital 4 nights a week from 5:30 to 11 p.m. He had been doing it for 3 years, not because he wanted to, because his granddaughter Amara has severe asthma. The inhalers, the ER visits, the medication, his Army pension and crossing guard salary combined were not enough. So Marcus Webb, a man who had already given 22 years of his life to this country, was grinding himself down every single week so that a 14-year-old girl could breathe. On the night of October 8th, Marcus clocked out of the hospital at 11:05 p.m. and walked to the parking lot. He got into his car, a 2003 Toyota Corolla with 187,000 miles on it. The passenger side mirror was held on with electrical tape. He was heading home on Westminster Street when everything changed. At 11:23 p.m., traffic camera ID WM17 at Westminster and Broad captured a matte black Lamborghini Urus running a red light at 61 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone. It clipped the rear quarter panel of Marcus's Corolla hard enough to send it spinning into the curb. The airbag did not deploy because the impact was to the rear. Marcus's head hit the driver's side window. He sat there dizzy, bleeding from above his left ear, for nearly 4 minutes before he could reach for his phone. He called 911 at 11:27 p.m. The Lamborghini did not stop. It accelerated and disappeared. Officer DeLuca arrived at 11:34 p.m. and found Marcus standing on the curb in the cold October air, holding a fast food napkin to the side of his head. His car was still running. The rear end was destroyed. He was taken by ambulance to St. Joseph's Hospital, the same building where he had just finished serving dinner 2 hours earlier, for a CT scan and 7 stitches. He missed 3 days of work, 3 days without pay, and that Corolla was declared a total loss. The insurance company offered him $412 for it, $412. Now let me tell you about the boy in the Lamborghini. His name was Tyler Harrington III, 19 years old. He introduced himself exactly that way, Tyler Harrington III. His father ran Harrington Realty Group, one of the largest commercial real estate firms in Providence. luxury condos, office towers, the new waterfront development on Allen's Avenue, old money wearing new clothes. Tyler had grown up in a 7-bedroom house in East Providence with a private tennis court. He had attended St. Christopher's Academy at $42,000 a year. He had never taken a bus. He walked into my courtroom at 9:15 a.m. on Thursday, November 14th. And I want to be precise, because I want you to understand exactly what I saw. This boy, standing before a judge on a reckless driving and hit-and-run charge, walked in wearing a Louis Vuitton belt worth $550, a Supreme hoodie at $400, off-white sneakers at $850, and a Rolex Daytona in steel and yellow gold retailing at $39,000. His hair was styled. His jaw was set. He had the look of a young man who had never once walked into a room and felt like he did not belong there. Complete and total confidence, the kind you only get from never facing a real consequence. He was represented by Paul Greenberg of Aldrich Greenberg and Walsh, a fine firm, an expensive firm. Mr. Greenberg had filed a motion 2 days earlier to reduce the reckless driving charge to a simple traffic infraction. I had already denied it. Tyler did not seem to know that yet. I asked Tyler to step forward. He stepped forward. He was chewing gum in my courtroom. At 9:15 in the morning, on a criminal traffic charge, I said to him quietly, the way I speak when I need someone to truly hear me, "Son, please remove the gum before you address this court." He reached into his mouth, pulled the gum out with 2 fingers, looked around for somewhere to put it, and stuck it on the edge of my bench. The courtroom went completely silent. My father was a barber on Federal Hill. He worked his whole life with his hands, gave everything to this city, and taught me that the courtroom is sacred ground. It is where people who have nothing else come for fairness, for dignity, for one moment where the law looks them in the eye and says, "You matter." This boy put his gum on my bench. I said nothing. I wrote something down. I moved forward, because that small, ugly, revealing moment told me everything I needed to know about Tyler Harrington III. Now I want to pause right here because I know some of you are thinking, "Judge, please tell me this boy gets what is coming to him." I hear you. Stay with me. Do me a favor. If you believe respect is not something money can buy, drop a comment below and just type the word respect. Let me see how many of us still believe that, because what comes next is something I could not have scripted if I tried. We began formal proceedings. Officer DeLuca had the full evidence packet, including the footage from camera WM17. I asked Mr. Greenberg how his client pleaded. Before Mr. Greenberg finished his second sentence, Tyler leaned into the microphone and said, "This is kind of overkill, don't you think? It was a fender bender. That guy's car was a piece of junk anyway." He said it clearly, loudly, and he was looking directly at Marcus Webb when he said it. Marcus was sitting in the gallery, wearing his Army veteran's cap, the one with the golden eagle. He had a bandage above his left ear, 7 stitches underneath. He did not flinch. He did not react. He sat with his hands folded in his lap, with the dignity of a man who has survived far worse than a 19-year-old with a Rolex and a bad attitude. That image of Marcus, still quiet, hands folded, is burned into my memory. I asked Tyler to let his attorney speak. Mr. Greenberg presented the motion to reduce charges. He argued the contact was minor, that his client had not realized the other car had stopped, and that the camera footage was insufficient to determine precise speed. I let him finish. Then I asked Officer DeLuca to describe the vehicle damage. She did. Rear quarter panel caved in, axle damaged, car undrivable, total loss, $412 settlement, 7 stitches, CT scan, 3 days of missed work, all of it. Tyler sighed, audibly, like a student sitting through a class he had already decided he did not need. He shifted his weight. He glanced at his phone. Mr. Greenberg put a hand on his arm and Tyler pulled away. We played the traffic camera footage on the courtroom monitor. The light at Westminster and Broad had been red for 4 full seconds before the Lamborghini entered the intersection. You could see the speed. You could see the impact. You could see the Corolla spin into the curb, and you could see the Lamborghini accelerate away with no brake lights and no hesitation. I asked Tyler if that was his vehicle. He said, "It might be." I asked again. He said, I think so. I asked a third time. He finally said, yeah, that's my car. I asked if he had stopped after the collision. He said, I didn't realize I hit anything. I let that sit. In a car worth $230,000 at 61 miles per hour. He did not realize he hit anything. I looked at Officer DeLuca. She looked at me. I said, son, a 2003 Toyota Corolla is not a small thing. You hit it hard enough to total it and put a 58-year-old man in the hospital. Tyler shrugged. He shrugged, and then he said, look, my dad can write a check. What's the number? Let's wrap this up. I have somewhere to be. The courtroom made a sound, half gasp, half silence, the kind of quiet that follows something indecent. I put my pen down. I folded my hands. I said very slowly, young man, you are not at a restaurant where you can ask for the check. You are in a court of law, and in this court, your father's checkbook has no power. Something crossed Tyler's face, not quite surprise, not quite annoyance, but something. And then he said the 4 words. He looked at me, 43 years on this bench, son of a federal hill barber, a judge in this city for longer than this boy had been alive, and Tyler Harrington III said, call my daddy then. He meant it. He genuinely believed his father's name would dissolve whatever this was, the same way it had apparently dissolved every other uncomfortable thing in his life. Now I know you are sitting there right now with your jaw on the floor, and I need you to stay with me. Because what I am about to tell you next, nobody in that courtroom saw coming, not his lawyer, not Officer DeLuca, not a single person in those gallery seats. You think you know where this is going. You do not. Stick with me. I looked at Tyler. I said, you know what? That is a fine idea. I picked up my phone. I set it on the bench. I said, give me his number. Tyler blinked. He thought he had won. He smiled, actually smiled, and gave me his father's cell number. I dialed it, turned the speaker on, and every single person in that courtroom heard it ring. But here is what my clerk Patricia had just handed me during that pause. She had been at her station the whole time, quiet and watchful as she always is. Someone in the gallery had mentioned Tyler's TikTok handle, @TylerH3Real, and Patricia had pulled up his public account on her tablet. He had 47,000 followers, and at 7:42 that very morning, 2 hours before he walked into my courtroom in his designer sneakers, Tyler had posted a video. He was in his bedroom, in the same Supreme hoodie, holding his Rolex toward the camera and laughing. The caption read, quote, about to go to court for hitting some old dude's hoopty lol. Dad already handled it. Watch me walk. End quote. 112,000 views, 14,000 likes. But it was one comment that stopped Patricia cold, one comment she underlined twice. It was from an account called Federal Case Watch. It said, we've been watching this family for 18 months. Case number FD 23024-0882. Follow this one. I am a municipal judge. I handle traffic cases, daily city business, the small machinery of the law. But in 43 years, I have learned this. Sometimes small cases are windows into bigger ones. Sometimes the boy who thinks he is untouchable is that way because someone has been teaching him that for a very long time. I kept that information close and turned back to the phone. It picked up. A man's voice came through the speaker, and deep, polished, the voice of someone used to running rooms. He said, Tyler, what is it? Tyler leaned in and said, hey, Dad, I'm at the court thing. Can you just call Greenberg and tell them to wrap this up? Silence on the line. Then I spoke. I said, Mr. Harrington, this is Judge Frank Caprio. I am presiding over case number MC 2024-4471. Your son suggested I call you. So I did. Longer silence. Then the voice, different now, the polish gone, said, Judge Caprio, I'm so sorry. Whatever Tyler has done, I apologize. Tyler's smile vanished instantly, like someone cut a wire. I said, Mr. Harrington, I want to ask you one question directly. Has your son ever faced a real consequence for his actions? Any consequence in his entire life? The silence that followed was its own answer. 4 seconds. 5. And then Tyler Harrington II said very quietly, No, sir, I don't believe he has. Tyler was staring at my phone on the bench. His face had gone pale. His knee was bouncing. He was not looking at his phone anymore. He was staring at the floor. I told the father everything. I told him about Marcus Webb, about the Army, the 22 years, the 2 tours, about the crossing guard post, the kids who called him Mr. Marcus, the second job at the hospital cafeteria, about Amara's asthma and the medication that kept a 14-year-old girl breathing, about the Corolla with the electrical tape on the mirror, about the 11:23 p.m. impact, the cold curb, the napkin pressed to a bleeding head, about the 7 stitches, about the $412 settlement, about the 3 days without pay. I heard the man on the phone go quiet in a different way, and then I heard something I was not expecting. I heard Tyler Harrington II begin to cry, quietly, not dramatically, just the sound of a man who has fully understood something he should have understood much sooner. He said, "I'm sorry, I am so sorry." He did not know Marcus personally. He was apologizing to the idea of him, to every person his son had ever sped past without a thought. If you have been with me from the very beginning of this story, I want you to know you are part of something that matters, people who still believe real accountability is worth fighting for. Hit that like button right now and let the world know justice still has a voice, because what comes next is why I tell this story. During the 5-minute recess I called for, Patricia reached out through proper channels regarding the Federal Case Watch comment and the federal case number. By the time we resumed, I had a callback confirming that Tyler Harrington III's name had appeared at the edge of an ongoing federal investigation. Not just one hit and run, 7. 7 incidents over 14 months. Luxury vehicles striking older model cars at night in lower-income neighborhoods and driving away. In at least 3 cases, the victims had accepted inadequate settlements and moved on, unable to afford attorneys, unfamiliar with court process. The Harrington family's Lamborghini Urus, registered to Tyler, insured under Harrington Enterprises, LLC, had been flagged in connection with 2 of those 7 incidents. This was no longer a reckless driving case. This was a pattern. Tyler's arrogance was completely gone now. What was left looked like a boy, a scared boy. His hands were clasped in front of him. Mr. Greenberg was leaning in close, speaking quietly, and Tyler was shaking his head slowly back and forth as reality settled over him like cold water. I called the session back to order. I asked Marcus Webb to stand. He stood the way soldiers stand, chin up, back straight. I said, "Mr. Webb, I want to thank you for your service to this country and to this community. What happened to you was wrong, and it is going to be addressed in full right now." Marcus said, "Thank you, Your Honor." 3 words, quiet, dignified, the words of a man who had placed his faith in the law and was waiting patiently to see if it would hold. I turned to Tyler. "Tyler Harrington III, please stand." He stood. I said, "I have been on this bench for 43 years. I have seen poverty walk through that door, and I have seen wealth walk through that door. In this courtroom, they stand in the same place, before the same bench, under the same law." I paused. "Your money is real, your privilege is real, the pain you caused is also real. All 3 of those truths exist here at the same time." Then I imposed the sentence. Reckless driving, $1,500, the statutory maximum. Leaving the scene of an accident with injuries, $2,250 plus full court costs. Mandatory 90-day license suspension filed with the Rhode Island DMV. Full restitution to Marcus Webb, not $412, but the actual fair market replacement value of a comparable, reliable vehicle, which I set at $6,000, payable within 30 days. All outstanding medical bills from the St. Joseph's Hospital Emergency Department, totaling $1,080, paid directly to the hospital within 15 days. And then I gave the sentence that made the courtroom go completely still. 120 hours of community service, not at a charity gala with the Harrington name on a banner, not at a comfortable office event, 120 hours as a crossing guard volunteer, reporting every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning at 7 a.m. to the Providence School Department, assigned to the corner of Elmwood Avenue and Hartford Street. Marcus Webb's corner. Tyler would stand where Marcus stands. He would wear the orange vest. He would hold the stop sign in the rain, in the cold, in the dark of early morning for 40 school weeks, for every child Marcus had spent 15 years protecting. I watched Tyler's face. The rage I expected was not there, neither was shame exactly. It was something in between, that rare, painful moment when a person begins to understand that the world does not end at the edge of their own experience. He looked at the floor, he looked at his hands, and then slowly he looked at Marcus Webb. And Marcus looked back at him, not with anger, not with triumph, with something only a man of real character can give to someone who has hurt him, with patience, with the steady look that says, "I trusted the law to speak for me," and it did. The federal matter I forwarded through appropriate channels and let it move forward on its own. I know my lane, but I will tell you this. Sometimes a pebble makes ripples that travel much farther than anyone expects, and sometimes one 19-year-old boy brought to account for one collision on one October night becomes the thread that, when pulled, unravels something much larger than anyone in that courtroom knew. 3 weeks after the hearing, Marcus Webb called my clerk's office. He wanted to say thank you. Patricia took the call. She told me he had used the $6,000 to buy a 2017 Honda Civic, 82,000 miles, clean title, good tires, no electrical tape anywhere. He had taken Amara with him to pick it out. She had named it the New Chariot. I laughed when Patricia told me that, the kind of laugh that rises up when something almost became a tragedy, but turned at the last moment into something human. Justice is not always clean. It is not always fast. It does not always deliver the full measure of what was deserved. But on the right day, in the right courtroom, with the right people watching, it is real, and it is enough to remind you why you keep showing up. Here is what I want you to take from this story. Tyler Harrington III did not become cruel on his own. Cruelty like that is taught. It is reinforced every time a check is written to make a problem go away. Every time a parent picks up the phone and clears the path. Every time a boy learns that consequences are for other people. The damage from that lesson does not stay inside one family. It gets behind the wheel of a $230,000 car, and it runs a red light at 61 miles per hour, and it drives away, while a 58-year-old veteran bleeds on the curb in the October cold. My father cut hair for 40 years on Federal Hill. He never had a Rolex. He never had a Lamborghini. What he had was the respect of every person who sat in his chair and the knowledge that he had built something in his son that no amount of money could replicate. He built in me the belief that the law exists to say what wealth tries to shout down, that every life that walks through that courtroom door has equal value before this bench, every single one. I believe that still. After 43 years, I believe it more now than when I started. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. It means more than you know. If this moved you, share it with someone who needs to believe the courtroom can still do its job. Subscribe so you never miss what comes next. And the next story I have for you, an off-duty firefighter, a stolen identity, and a defendant who laughed in exactly the wrong courthouse, is going to leave you absolutely speechless. I will see you there.